Well, it's by far the warmest day of the month so far, and for parts of Ireland, it's actually the warmest since August 2022. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is enjoying the sunshine if you've got it, and enjoying some of the UV rays. We've not seen that in quite some time. Temperatures as high as 25 in the Northwest Highlands, 26, 27, quite widely across the Midlands, Northern England, and down into East Anglia and the southeast, a little bit fresher further south and west here. Yesterday's Shannon Airport topped 26.4, I believe it was, and that was the warmest day of the year so far for here, and also the warmest since August last year. The temperature reached 25.9 in England yesterday. That was the warmest temperature since the 10th of July. We, of course, now surpassed that value quite considerably this afternoon. How high the temperature goes remains to be seen, but of course it will be getting wiped out over the next 24 hours or so as a frontal system, cold front at that, moves from west to east across the British Isles, bringing more Atlantic freshness back into the pattern once again. But as been highlighted here for quite some time on the channel, we are seeing a build-up of pressure over the continent. That is now starting to kind of slow down the westward progress of areas of low pressure from the Atlantic, trying to move our way. So therefore, of course, we've got a much more warmer south to southeasterly airflow in play at the moment. Hence why we're seeing the warmer temperatures across the board. So you can see here, this is the 850s according to the GFS ensemble for London. And we've got this trend here where it's above average over the next 24 to 36 hours or so. Then it drops slightly below average at the 5,000 feet above London. It trends a little bit below average for the next few days, and then you see the general idea of a warming trend as we press through next week. And it looks as if that is now becoming more of the favourable pattern through the second half of August. Even looking at Inverness, you can see the same thing here. We've got firmly above average. It stays pretty much above average. It drops slightly below average 15th through the 16th of August, and then it goes back above average. Now, it's not all plain sailing. It's not going to be like, June all over again where we have clear blue skies, sunshine, and a lack of rainfall. We may have volatility with the pattern low pressure systems never too far away from our shores, so therefore we have to expect a little bit of volatility within the pattern here. But the general idea, this is a nice description of both ends of the British Isles, Inverness and London. The general trend is a warming one. But if you notice here, this is off Tropical Tidbits. This is the GFS run, by the way. The North Atlantic view. Now, one thing I want to point out is we need to start paying attention a little bit more to the tropical Atlantic here. The African wave train, relatively subdued at this time of the year, or certainly at this moment in time. But we are seeing some model output increase in the favourability for tropical development over the tropics. And of course, with a lot of warm water stacked up across the mid and high latitudes of the North Atlantic, systems that perhaps recurve around the Bermuda High or around the Azores High that find themselves lifting up into the mid-latitude pattern. We need to pay careful attention to this because models have a hard time sometimes figuring out how to distribute that warmth as it engages with either the jet stream or the cooler westerlies in our region of the world. Tropical systems can be one of two things. It can deepen areas of low pressure, enhancing unsettled conditions over the UK and Ireland and Western Europe, but it also can provide heat wave conditions. You transport some of that heat out of the tropics into the mid-latitudes, and you actually all of a sudden find yourself building pressure over our region of the northeast Atlantic here. So it is a complex scenario at this time of the year. As you press towards the mid and late half of the summer season, the dynamics change, the atmosphere starts to change, water temperatures are generally at their warmest levels of the year. That has feedback to the atmosphere. Of course, you add in tropical ingredients into the pattern, and that can change things quite dramatically here. So that is something that I'm keeping a close eye on over the next few weeks is the tropics and the movement of anything that may try to develop over the low latitudes here. But notice here, right, as we play through this loop, we've got low pressure dominance, but we have got some changes now beginning to take place as heights rise over the continent, over the near continent at that. That then creates a little bit of resistance to Atlantic weather. So the Atlantic essentially gets pushed back as the pressure builds over the continent. And as we press through the course of next week in particular, we start to see these areas of low pressure that spawn aboard a weaker jet stream coming off North America. You've got that conga line, that little train of low pressure systems riding from west to east. But notice we're starting to see the heights rise over into the north of the UK. And essentially what that's doing is it's forcing these areas of low pressure to drift south. This is the operational GFS run, so it's only one individual run. And I'll show you the GFS ensemble in a second here. But notice that area of high pressure at 1025 millibars just to the north of Scotland. That's forcing that incoming area of low pressure off the Atlantic to then dive south. As it dives south, we then expect possibly warmer air, Northwest Africa, Iberia, France, to lift northwards. We're seeing it at the moment, and it looks as if towards the end of next week and next weekend, we may get another opportunity for warmer air coming up from the south here. We may see, some of the model output is indicating 20 plus Celsius at 850. That certainly is bona fide warm air, folks, and it's quite interesting. But you see this kind of splitting apart. The main center of low pressure then drifts to the south, to the west of Iberia and the Bay of Biscay. The other piece goes to the northwest of Scotland here. So that is essentially that block, that stone in the river, forcing the atmosphere to go north and to go south of the British Isles. So a very different pattern now starting to evolve, and exactly how warm it is remains to be seen. But you play through the loop here. This is Sunday the 20th, Monday into the 21st. You notice here that area of high pressure is now starting to stop the Atlantic from coming into UK and Ireland airspace here. So certainly very interesting times to come. The 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly chart also represents the same thing. So as we play through the next couple of days, there's that area of low pressure, that wheel that's driving the warmth north over the UK and Ireland, of course. That then topples its way over the UK over the weekend. So the cold front moves through. We'll have fresher air off the Atlantic. We'll increase the shower activity. It's going to be quite a showery regime. And we actually have a yellow warning for Northern Ireland over the overnight tonight, because we've got that frontal system moving from in off the Atlantic here. As that engages with warm, humid air over Northern Ireland, we're going to enhance the rainfall. May see some localized flash flooding, parts of, anywhere from Belfast down towards Dublin. We may see some heavy, rainfall amounts over the next 24 hours or so. So you can see here, this is, of course, the 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly chart. This is the anomalies versus average, what would be considered average. And you can see here, through the course of the weekend, that area of low pressure then bodily moves across the UK. So this is weekend 5 in a row of low pressure essentially dominating the pattern. And we wipe the heat out. The warm temperatures that we're seeing at the moment is coming back down again. And then there we see here that we start to build the heights across the northern, across the UK and across the north of the UK here. Look at Europe as well. Heights are rising. So essentially that's shutting the door to Atlantic air coming in from the west here. And it looks as if that continues through the course of next week. Remember I said to you the build-up of pressure over the UK, forcing that low pressure south. There's that negative here to the west of Iberia. And with an area of low pressure position there, high pressure in the north of the UK, you then see the potential for warmer air coming up from the south. But we've got some significant high pressure seen by the models towards the end of the period, 18th into the 20th, 21st, 22nd of August here. We've got some fairly strong anomalies here with areas of low pressure getting deflected to the south, as you can see. Looking at this is the rainfall amounts here, and you can see the general slowdown in the eastward progress of Atlantic weather here. Notice here the wettest conditions across Western Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England and Wales as well. Always drier the further south and east you go. It's a very classic late summer pattern across the British Isles, always more unsettled the further west and north you go versus the south and southeast. Got another string of heavy precip slicing across France, eastern Belgium, western and northwestern portions of Germany, into parts of Scandinavia as well. So it's interesting to see the way that even the precipitation is starting to change as the upper air pattern goes. We don't have a great deal of rain over the British Isles seen by the models, but of course with any kind of shower activity, you have to assume that we could get some fairly significant localized amounts. But you notice here the precipitation start to dig further south to the west of Iberia. This is actually something a little bit more similar to what we've seen back in the month of June overall. So certainly warm temperatures across the UK and Ireland at this moment in time, by far the warmest in over a month, in fact. And yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how the pattern progresses as we push through the second half of August here. Like I said, a yellow warning in place by the Met Office for this evening, 10 to 15 millimetres in a few hours, locally 20 to 30 millimetres of rain. That will cause problems on the roads potentially this evening. If you're out and about late, either going to work, coming home from work, or maybe out and about, you may have issues. This is between 8 o'clock tonight and 2 o'clock tomorrow morning across parts of Northern Ireland. So let's have a quick look and see what tweets I've put out over the last wee while here. This is actually off the Met Office channel here. So let's have a quick look and see. If you're enjoying the content, be sure to like and let YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on marfoganweather.com. Also, I'm literally just a few subs away from 5,000 subscribers. Also, if you're enjoying the content, you want to know more about meteorology, the big picture, how our weather evolves, well, stay tuned to the channel here, because I've got a lot of exciting content to come, especially in the weeks and couple of months ahead as we start to look more and more towards the winter season, the development of the El Nino, why it's been kind of slow in terms of progression. Looking at the Manjulian oscillation, that can sometimes be a major driver to our weather conditions here. That is away down in the tropics, but how that interacts with the North Atlantic pattern and the Northern Hemispheric pattern, it certainly has big implications on our weather. I try to show you the global aspects here on marfoganweather.com to give you a better handle on what's going on. Also, very dramatic sea surface temperature drops as well to the south of the UK over the Western Mediterranean basin. I showed you this in yesterday's video. This is another tweet here put out talking about that Fergal Tierney, showing the big drop. European sea surface temperatures, especially the Mediterranean, have really taken a nosedive over the past 7 days. The central and northern Mediterranean is now a good 4 Celsius below average, thanks to stiff maestral winds here. So you can see here in these charts the big drop really between the Azores, the parts of the Canaries or Madeira. Big significant drop in temperature here, and with these areas of low pressure diving south and west of the Iberian Peninsula, would expect to see a continuation of these cooler than normal waters, these areas of low pressure kicking up wind, drawing that colder water from deep below the surface up, and that causes the upwelling, of course. Temperatures around the British Isles, and like he says, particularly so the Western Mediterranean basin, a good 4 Celsius below average. So the weather pattern very much dictating the sea surface temperatures. A lack of wind during the late spring, early summer drove the temperatures 4, 5, 6 Celsius above average. Now we're at 4 Celsius below average, simply because we've got low pressure and wind now starting to bring those colder waters up. But look at the Western Mediterranean basin. That is a remarkable temperature drop here in the last few days. And even the chart here of NOAA tends to be quite bullish in terms of the heat. You can see here very warm temperatures to the west, cooler waters to the east. Ran out of time as always. Do stay tuned for the final video of the week on marvelandweather.com tomorrow, and I'll see you again for that.